be moderated by Mr. Aniruddha Mahajan, Customer Care Associate and DVP HR, Stop Ltd. Let's have a huge round of applause. Then we have the speakers for the panel are Miss Binny, Ashish, Head HR, Celio Retail Private Limited. Miss Nabamita, Banerjee, Director, Partner Resources HR, Tata Starbucks. And last but not the least, we have Mr. Ramakrishnan KR, Lead Branding, Wellbeing and Culture, Reliance Retail Limited. And they would be deliberating on a very interesting topic, redefining your organization's employer branding. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Bhumika. I think I'm joined today by a very knowledgeable set of panel. We have had HR for Starbucks, Nabamita. Binny is there, who's heading HR for Celio. We have a head of strategy for Reliance, who takes care of employer branding and engagement. And what I'm happy to see is everybody in the room. Most of them I know personally and I work with. So I think that makes us easy. One of my former colleagues, Mr. Audumbar, is there, who I worked with in Metro Cash and Carry. Of course, he has my team from Shoppers Stop, and I'm sure it's the same for Binny.
Our teams are there.
So it's more like a family and friends discussion, and I would like to take it that way. I think before we had thought that we'd have it in such a question answer manner, but I think we want to encourage more questions from you so that we can get insight on how we do it in our own organizations, and we can learn from each other. So, but before we get into that, there are few questions or few insights that I'd like to have from you before we open it up. I think first one for you, Nabamita.
Right, sure.
So, employer branding is such an interesting topic, and it covers all of the facets of HR. Why do you think it is so important for employers to have employer branding and have a good EVP?
I'm sure there's specialists here sitting here who would know. But, even if you look at the Indian youth population, we have around 150 million, we say employable youth that's there in India. So I don't feel there's any problem in the source pool that exists. But for any organization to succeed, of course, you need the best fitted people for the roles. And to be able to do that, unless you have a compelling employer brand, you don't get the best fitted people. I think that's one. Second, people say it promotes loyalty and it reduces turnover. But for me, I feel it's not about reducing turnover. I think it's about how do you retain the key talent. So is your employer brand not only relevant for the entire population, but compelling enough for your key people to stay on, I think is important. The third factor, of course, is engagement. And I feel engagement is also a factor of expectations. So when you have a relevant employer brand, your people know what to expect, whether it's culture, whether it's progression, whether it's benefits. And then I think the gap reduces between the expectation and what they see coming. And that enables a higher level of engagement, which translates to, of course, performance and productivity, as we say. So I think all these three, of course, fall in the employee circle. I think the second circle, which we speak less of when we think of employer branding, is our supplier partners or our consultants, vendor partners, service providers. I think for them these days, more than associating with a client which just gives them a commercial advantage, they're also looking at associating with reputed progressive brands which have a compelling employer branding, because it's just an association that they take pride in, and that of course benefits the organization. And I think the third circle, customers, now because we are in retail and because we are a QSR brand, our employees, we call them partners at Starbucks, they are our customers as well. So when they're happy, of course, they bring in more customers, and that of course translates to better customer satisfaction and the business grows. So I think yes, and overall, of course, the culture, cohesive culture happens only when we are consistent on what we communicate is our employer value proposition. So I think yes, it's a culmination of all of it.
Thank you for sharing. I think one of the great insights that Starbucks has is all the employees are called as partners, and that creates a unified purpose to all the employees coming together, and everybody. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everybody takes pride
That's
in
very,
in
very true.
in being called as a partner. And it is not only I think in India, but it is there across the world. Therefore, uh, when they take pride, it's citizenship that comes in, uh, citizenship of being at Starbucks. It also increases engagement. It's part of their culture, and it's also core value proposition because they feel special. And so, one question that any potential employee would ask is, why should I work in your company? What is it in there for me? And that's where the employer branding part comes in. But I'd like to ask you, Binny, how do you go about propagating uh, your EVP, or how do you go about disseminating information about your brand?
Okay, so EVP is actually one of the most important component of employer branding, right? So what's EVP? Employee value proposition, which is what's like exactly what he said, what's in it for me. So what is the kind of proposition you're giving to your employee from an employer, right? From, in terms of compensation benefits, career progression, workplace culture, etc. So what we do at Celio is that, our EVP is winning with people. So one of our pillars also in the organization, from those rest of the 4 pillars, is winning with people. And while we're on a very growth trajectory, that's what we were discussing, how Celio as a brand has grown from a negative EBITDA to a positive EBITDA. We're double digit EBITDA positive. We are PAT positive last year, and that's the kind of growth journey that we've had, right? So it's a time, and in Celio, where everybody comes within the organization with a growth mindset, and that's where we say that we win with our people. So we take our people along with, while we are seeing this whole growth trajectory. So our employee value proposition is obviously winning with the people while ensuring that the business is growing constantly.
Thanks for that. I I think you have built the employee value proposition after you joined, right?
Um, yeah, so sort of. So I was onboarded onto Celio. So 2017 is when the entire transformation journey of Celio started. 2019 is when I was onboarded with the sole intention that people didn't know Celio back then. So much so that even though we were in India since the last more than a decade, but the branding exercise was completely given to me by my CEO, when he told me that, when we want to hire people, people don't come and join because they don't know Celio as a brand. And then, yes, we took that up. We worked on all the 4 pillars. Like I said, one of the pillar being people, and then the whole branding exercise started, where I'm proud to say that, we are actually 3 times a row we were 4 times in a row we are Great Place to Work certified. 3 times we were in the top 10 best retail companies. Twice we were in the top 100 best retail 100 organizations in the country. So I think all in all, because of all the efforts that we've put in terms of attracting great talent, which helps us in that entire journey of growth, has helped us to and the entire branding exercise, because we had to attract young talent, has helped us to reach where we are today.
Thank you for that. I think this one is for you, RK. And this is actually very close to the topic or title of our discussion today, redefining your employment brand. And if you see in the last decade or so, the kind of employees that we have had in our organization has changed. We have baby boomers, we have millennials, we have Gen X, Gen Z. Okay. So what do you think, RK? Do we need to really redefine or create different personas to attract these different sets of employees, or a unified employer branding strategy would work?
Thanks, Aniruddha. So, couple of quick thoughts here. I think number one, for every generation, there's some things that are common and some aspects which they feel is extremely important for one generation compared to the other. So, my sense here is to have multiple EVPs can be too confusing for the end users, for our business partners, for recruiters who are trying to represent this to all our employees and prospect employees. So one EVP, but the way it's coming out, the initiatives we are proposing or the initiatives we are communicating could be extremely different, and even the modes of communication could be very different. For example, at Reliance Retail, one thing we have done pretty well is how we are enabling employee advocacy. When we're getting employees to speak about the good practices of the organization, encouraging them, resharing it whenever they post on social media, that again, the younger generation seems to do a lot more. Second part is again, how does any young person today learn? It's not Google, it's not books, it's influencers. Okay. So we again targeted a few influencers within our own organization. For example, a good following and could have following in multiple other aspects. For example, maybe on fitness, maybe on food. And we had a few sessions with them. And they were resharing about all of this in their own network. So in this manner, by targeting uh, different communication methods for different generation, we were able to propagate it very well. And as a commonality, which I want to take your example here, your designation, I don't know how many of you saw it, it says Customer Care Associate and then your actual designation. And that really shows for any generation the very fact that we are a retail organization, hence we are first associate and then all the roles that we do. That reinforcement really happens well for all the generations.
Thanks, RK.
So he's done branding for shoppers.
For you. And
Thank
you
you so
maybe
much.
speak about it as well.
So I think I want to pose the same question for both of you. Do you think you want to strategize differently, or would you want to take a similar approach with respect to attracting different sets of employees with generational gap? Anybody?
Mine? Yeah. So I think though the core uh, employee value proposition remains the same, but when you're actually, for example, if you're wanting to hire a marketing team member, then you may have to like personalize the entire EVP for that in their job description to just say that what is, for example, what is the kind of new age marketing that we are going to use within Celio, which will attract that employee to kind of come on board. Because as a company's EVP, it could be innovation, sustainability, etc., but it may not resonate with the person for a particular role, and hence for to attract that particular person, for that marketing person, for him innovation or for her innovation would be the new age marketing technique. So hence your job description, your KRAs will have to be a little personalized when it comes down to certain categories or certain roles, but yes, not forgetting the core employee value proposition that you give to the employee. So I think that should be a hybrid model rather than just focusing on one.
Okay. Yeah.
I think so. Gen Z, I mean, for us, of course, the average age I would say is 23 that we take in, and very much forms at the center of the Gen Z population. I don't know whether a 23-year-old today has very different expectations than what a 23-year-old had 10 years back. But I think, you read anything, any research on this tells you that, when you're attracting Gen Z, beyond the tangible benefits, you have to talk about the vision, you have to talk about the sustainability aspect, you have to talk about your D&I proposition, and you have to talk about your social impact, because that's what they resonate with. They look for meaning behind just work. I don't know if I agree with all aspects because, in some of the FGDs that we did few years back, and I would ask them what attracted you to Starbucks. Was it because, we do so much in social impact? Was it because we do sustainability? Then they say no. So a lot of people come from humble backgrounds and they said, I have to support my family. What I'm looking for is a brand that I can trust, which has stability. So my question is the brand, does it care for me? Does it care? Does it have benefits that are supporting my family? So, a lot of perception on, we can't generalize that, not necessarily all Gen Zs would come for a job in case that brand represents sustainability. So that's, I think, one learning. That's been one learning. Second, which I feel is a theme, at least it works in our context, is flexibility. They're definitely looking for that. So, of course, whether it's our corporate people, clear question is, do we have to work for all 5 days from office or not? Even in our stores, we, of course, have now a flexible working model. But flexibility is key. We have a 5-day work week proposition that works in, that in fact is our differentiator. And we say again, the other 1 day that you're getting off, which you don't usually get, is towards your family and towards your friends. Similarly, one of our learning platforms, which is in collaboration with Arizona University, is not just for our employees, our partners, but also for their families. So a lot of, and we also do a lot on parental insurance. So I think for us, the proposition is, this place is where you belong, you bring yourself, and we are here to care not only for you, but for your friends and family. So that's worked for us.
Thank you for that. I think the way millennials have approached jobs and baby boomers or Gen Z, I think first we used to work for salaries. Now they would say, I want to work for learning, I want to work for growth. Now they would value more giving back to the society. Earlier they would want to excel and become best at their jobs. So yeah, so everybody has a different attraction. And coming to that, to you, RK, I think how do you tie up your EVP to your org strategy? So part of the strategy team for HR at Reliance. Is there some special formula that you use you can share with us?
No formula as such at the end of the day, but then there is no way our HR strategy or a branding strategy can ever be disconnected from our business. For example, we were making a movement into the entire online business, okay, which is marketplace business, GeoMart, all of that. That required a very different talent, which we required. The talent pool was very, very different. And again, the talent was coming from many more established e-commerce organizations with a very different set of expectations. So what we did, one of our EVP elements was also to co-create the future, where we spoke to people that since we are finding it ourselves now, all your suggestions would be taken in. We're taking all your views because we don't have a set way ourselves at this stage. And the kind of movement we are making, where we're trying to get tier 2, tier 3 cities as well as a part of the e-commerce revolution, very few companies would have done it. So we specifically promoted this aspect when we tried to promote our EVP, number one. In addition, for example, if in case we were trying to target a few certified pharmacists around a couple of years back, there was a business requirement. So we specifically, in terms of communication, we went into Facebook ads in a big way, where we ensured that we're able to target certain geographies specifically, certain people with certain qualifications and certifications. And this manner, we could propagate our EVP, our branding, our promise to those specific category of people as well. So two methods, how we try to connect our entire branding strategy, our EVP, to the business strategy.
Thank you for that, RK. Really helpful and enlightening. There is a lot of tech that we use, and the way HR operates has evolved over a period of time. I just want to ask you, Binny, do you also use tech a lot for employer branding initiatives, or is there? And additionally, for internal employees, how do you go ahead and propagate your EVP or reinforce your EVP?
Okay, so I'll take the second part of the question first. So for internal employees, in fact, we do a lot of things, to kind of reiterate of what we do best, right? So in order to retain, we were just discussing that our retention has improved year on year by 10%. So what works for us is basically continuously engaging the employees, giving them a growth path. Like I said, we are in a growth mindset, and hence it was very important while we were in that journey that we kind of ensure that we, kind of do a lot of career progressions and keep the entire bench ready, because we're opening, say 10, 20 stores this financial year. We already opened 8 stores. And because we didn't want to hire from outside, so we're trying to keep the entire bench ready. So the work was going on the last 2-3 years. And what we did is obviously the career progression, showcasing it on our internal social media. We have two types of internal social media. One is for India as a country, which is within our HRMS system, where people can actually go and put out posts and, just like a Facebook Meta, right? And so it kind of connects all the employees within the organization. We also have Workplace, which is from Meta, which is a worldwide internal social media, where we get to know what is happening in, say, in France, Belgium, India, etc. So we kind of connect with within the organization, and people in France gets to know what is happening in India and things like that. So I think that is one way of connecting and, constantly reviving and revolving around what is happening within the organization, who is getting promoted, what's happening in one region, how many stores are you opening here. So the whole culture that we kind of build is celebration, and, constant reinforcement of what we are doing as an organization from the head office, from the headquarters. To answer your first question, are we using any digital tools? So LinkedIn is one major platform that we use for employer branding, and on all our digital platforms, right? Your LinkedIn, your social media like your Instagram, Twitter, Meta, these are the digital tools that we actually use within Celio to kind of do the employer branding. And so LinkedIn works for middle level and above. For the lower levels is typically within. So while in my earlier forum I was telling that we have 70 to 74% of our employees are hired through referrals. Okay, and that 10% of them are walk-ins. So that in itself tells the kind of attraction that we are actually building for the organization, because people can see and resonate with our brand, whether it's in fashion. So that's really helping. So for me, LinkedIn works for certain level of people where we do. So when I had to hire a C-suite member, we had done a targeted marketing in terms of, with your performance marketing and things like that. We had actually done a target marketing for hiring the right set of people. So you pay a few bucks and then you actually can target through pin code as well as to which person you need to kind of talk to that person about your organization. So that's the kind of branding exercise that we did, and attracted external people. But yeah, so when you do, like he was talking about employee advocacy, I think we depend a lot on that, because what people see within the organization is only when people can go outside and talk about it. And I think that's pretty much worked for us at Celio.
Oh, I think getting to know that almost more than 70% people are walk-ins, and that speaks a great about your brand and the attraction it carries.
I
Sure.
think it just shows that you're
Referrals,
actually
right?
living your EVP on a daily basis, and employees are feeling that. I think that's
True.
amazing.
Yeah, thank you to my team there.
So coming back to you, Nabamita, what do you do for internal branding? Is there something that others can learn from Starbucks?
Can't pinpoint at one thing, but I think consistency, the approach is something I think that has helped us through years. Small examples, and they're very, very small. We have a Monday coffee tasting ritual, and in that ritual, people across the organization can join in. They can ask any questions on Teams, and it's anonymous. So there are more questions. They can give feedback on anything that we've rolled out. So what it does is, of course, the leadership team steps up and they answer any questions, and we are agile. And if we want to make amends to things that we've not done the right way, that shows. So I think that listening platform is a mechanism for us to reinstate that we care, which is again, of course, our proposition. I think that works well. My team here, whenever we have, again, when it comes to listening platforms, I think that's been the strength for Starbucks. The amount and the number of town halls that happens, the FGDs that happen throughout the year, across roles, across geographies, I think is commendable. And I have my team here who actually conducts that, and I think that whenever they do that, we start with what our values are. And that is very consistent. So when we hire, we of course look at values. Through the year, we are communicating that through our listening platforms whenever we do. And the third part is we also celebrate that. So we have something like Value Ambassador, which is a recognition program. So we don't just recognize hardcore achievements on the goal deliverables, but it's also about how you do it. The how part gets recognized. So that again acts as a reinforcement. And I think even through exit, we say once a partner, always a partner. So a lot of benefits, like I said, the learning platform, even if you exit, you can still access it. So I think if you are consistent throughout the journey, from the time you establish that first touch point till the time they depart. So I think that sustaining that has helped us.
Amazing. I think the learning part especially was excellent. Even if you're no longer an employee at Starbucks, you still get to access the learning platform. Amazing. Coming back to you, RK, slightly technical. Anything that gets measured gets done is what we hear. Is there a way to measure employer branding, effectiveness of employer branding?
A couple of thoughts. For at least internal employees, the best way is the referral, which you just spoke about. I think that shows whether all that you're speaking, is it A, the reality, and to our employees feeling that on a daily basis. For the external, it's majorly about how many walk-ins you're able to get, and then again the quality of hire. So one very specific initiative, which again we take in terms of the external branding. So an initiative called Retail Samarth. We're actually developing the youngsters, youth of this country. They will not be a part of Reliance at all, but they can access it openly through an app. They can go through the entire journey, get certified about the fact that they have a proper know-how of retail, and based upon requirement, then we take them in to the organization. So this again ensures that it's not just the organization's employees who feel the brand, but even outside the organization who clearly see that they're getting a developmental opportunity and living on our credo of what's good for India is good for Reliance. I think these aspects help. At the same time, can we measure all of it? Probably could be a little difficult, but these give a clear indication of how our brand is.
Thank you, RK. Do you do it differently? Do you have certain measures that you look at, maybe at an annual or a quarterly basis, that hey, my employer branding is working? Because like Binny said, 74% walk-ins are there, right? Are there any other aspects that you think we should look at, and probably we are not looking?
So I think all the output metrics, right? So one, of course, like she said, referrals is of course just is one part, and like he said, it is core. But then engagement levels itself. So if your engagement levels are growing, then it's compelling enough for them to stay engaged with what you are communicating to them. The retention part again is important. I feel for our people at stores, the CV, because if I'm engaged, I will communicate, it'll pass on to the customer. So we also measure CV score to see whether that is showing a growth. In fact, there's so much significance on that it sits on the KPIs for, of course, the leadership team that determines their long-term bonus as well. So, I mean, it is so relevant for us. And we know that it doesn't happen magically. It happens when you have happy employees or partners, as we call them. And that, so all of it, I think, if your employee branding is strong, because it's not just external, it's also so internal. I think all these output metrics define whether you are doing the right thing or not for your people.
Thank you. Thanks,
Yes,
Nabamita.
to add on, so while obviously we also do the similar kind of metrics to understand the quality. So, like I was telling you all, a couple of years back, Celio as a brand had an identity crisis, so to speak. So, to kind of get candidates or people from competitive brands to come and join us it was in itself a task. Today, when we actually open a position, we can see the quantity of resumes that come in from our competitors. That in itself says a lot about the kind of employer branding exercise that we've done. So the quality of hire as well, in terms of we are we getting the right efficient people, or are we settling for whatever is coming in front of us. So I think the quality of hire, the retention, the referrals that we spoke about, the engagement scores, the followers that come onto your pages, whether it's Insta or whether it is your LinkedIn. I think the followers also makes we are in that like mode. So I think that all those things makes a lot of difference for you to understand whether your employer branding exercise is working or no. And if it is not, then you definitely need to kind of go back and check and probably redefine your EVP, because your EVP needs to be redefined at least. Earlier it used to be 2 to 3 years. I think it's become so much so that every 1 year you need to kind of redefine your EVP to see where you're going.
Wow, thanks, Binny. Uh, and like I said at the beginning of our session, I think we've kind of understood what each of us majorly does. But if you have any questions you would want to probe further on insights about employer branding, uh, anybody of us would be happy to respond. Yes, please.
Sure, it's very different mechanisms, like I said, town halls and FGDs together, and the coffee tastings that I spoke about. I'll come to give you an example of how do we respond. The 5-day work week that I talk about did not come from the leadership team. It came from people through our annual partner experience survey. And I guess that's what makes me stay for so long in Starbucks. It's a 10th year. Any retail company, of course, they'll ask what is the cost associated, and sometimes it just becomes a shut. You shut down to something that's come up. But I think some of these insights are discussed in leadership meetings. And of course, being in the talent space, you have the ownership of working around how to make it happen. And how to get in creativity to make it happen, which is the second part. But I think the first part is we take it seriously. We don't drop it. That's the first part. Second is when we know we cannot, we stand up and say we cannot. Right? So the first thing, that the gap between expectation and what happens, I think as soon as when you narrow it down through authenticity, I think that works. So we always say, we're sorry, that's not possible. Or maybe it's a good thought, but we cannot afford it right now. We are frugal about it. So I think communicating that back is very, very important. So I think when people feel they're heard, and when people know that you're being authentic and getting back, following it through, that helps. How do we do it? One mechanism, which I told you, it's just a weekly, like I said, it's a 30-minute segment that we have. We use it to communicate the positives, but also to listen from them. We address queries right then and there. My team, in fact, they'll tell you better on the cadences at stores. When people join in, after between 3 to 6 months, there's a check-in that happens for all new people. We call it cultural check-ins, workshops. So they'll go there and they'll ask them how your experience was in the initial period, and again, more questions on the culture and the value. So insights are taken. What I discussed with the team is, as we are geographically spreading, right, it becomes so difficult. We used to have these in-person connects. Now it's become virtual. But to save time, it's send out Google Sheets, get those questions, and then get into those discussions so that you're focusing right. And then the second part is following it through. And that's one thing we do. Second, I think, again, we've started this recently. Our field teams now, they publish a calendar to say that on these days, we're going to be available in these stores, and they distribute it in different districts. So if somebody wants to have an in-person meeting, they have a calendar and they know when they can approach them. I think that's another mechanism. The other thing, FGD, so we have CO2 people connects. I connect with different functions. The regional leaders connect with different functions. In my team, I would connect with my skip levels, and so would every functional leader. We also do cross-functional connects. So there are LT members who connect with different, so I might head HR, but I'll connect with, say, supply chain, with marketing. So I think cadence around that, there's a proper calendar sits with the business partners in my team, and they're here on the floor. You can connect back. I wouldn't remember it, but we have frequencies for each of these kinds of connects. But I think, again, more than doing it, it's about whether you're following it through, whether you're responding, whether you're clarifying. So yeah, thank you.
Any questions? Would love to respond to them. Or if you don't have questions, I have questions for you. I think one of the questions that I'd like to ask you, is there an idea on employer branding that you would want to share that you think organizations are not doing now and can do? Not so difficult, right? Is it?
Guys, I'm sure we're not doing everything. Okay, so please, more than happy to get your thoughts. That's our value add as well, please.
Sure.
So basically having inclusive policies, there's a lot of talk on D&I in India and abroad. Abroad versus India, the landscape is completely different. Out there, people actually imbibe it in terms of policies. It's top down. It's management to the grassroots level employees. In India, it's still not there. People want to do it. There's willingness to do it. But how to do it is missing completely. So how do we bridge that gap? Because I believe that will change all companies in terms of repute, in terms of innovation, in terms of synergy, everything.
So I think if we can answer of how we go about doing our D&I, probably can help if Binny, you or Nabamita, anybody.
Yeah, this one I can go for. So D&I, first of all, diversity is in universe. You can't do everything unless it starts with inclusion is your place for everybody, and it could be anything, diversity in thoughts, work models, seniority, gender, whatsoever. So Starbucks will be 12 years next month. And 2014, our one of the the matrices which definitely didn't resonate with me when I was there was the female representation. It was as low as a 16% then. And I came in from IT, so I was like, wow. And I remember at that point in time, I wasn't in a leadership role. I used to go and conduct sessions. In some of the geographies, I would be the only lady in the room conducting a session. So I said, of course, we did things that so many other organizations have done. So, you introduce women representation goals in the goal sheets of the leaders, so they own it, the business leaders. You do gender sensitization workshops. We did all of that. We tracked what the female representation was at the candidate level, which was around a 21-22%. So what happened was, in few years, we got to a 30%, and we felt 33%. And we felt, okay, we are good, but we were aspirational, and we said we want to get to a 40%. And then comes bottlenecks. You realize that you can't navigate through because you're in a QSR sector, and we have a dispersed store model, and most of our formats run beyond 8:30 p.m. There are state laws that require organizations to give transportation to females working in night shifts, right? So, and most of our stores are like that. And then we said, how do we crack this now? And again, I was talking about creativity, right? So you have to have that lateral thinking. So we said, okay, we'll look at few stores which close by, which end by 8:30 p.m. again, depending on, for Maharashtra it's 9:30 p.m. So it's simpler. And we said those stores we'll convert into all women stores. So they'll be women-led stores. As soon as we did it, it opened up bandwidth in the other stores to employ more women. That was one. There are few routes where the organization has actually gone ahead and invested in transportation. So we now are able to employ women in work shifts, even on routes which otherwise, even in stores which don't close early. So I think that investment to make is, of course, shows the leadership of the, I think, organization, the board, because it's not easy for them to take those decisions. But what you're telling people is, you're doing the right thing. And if you invest in one pocket, there are ways, many other pockets where you can be frugal about, but are you doing the right thing? Now, what it has done to us is, which honestly was a byproduct, and I didn't even think of it then, we are now able to attract females who would want to work maybe in the morning shifts, or they're attending college and they want to work in the closing shifts. In terms of development, one of our skill sets in operations is sales and inventory, which the belief was you need to do a closing shift to be skilled in that. So many people were not proficient in that, and they were not getting promoted to the next level. So that gender gap in the proficiency levels in that practice narrows down. And then, which we've not done as we should be doing, using these stores to train the women in the other stores in closing shifts. So I think so it's been a great journey. We are close to a 40% now, and of course, again, being in such a store format, it's difficult, but we've got there. And we always say that it's about doing the right thing. And I think, again, this is compelling. And coming to employer value proposition, we have people who join in corporate roles and who come in some interviews, they say, we read about this. We just wanted to be associated with a brand who believes in the right things. So yeah, I think some of these things help.
If I can add
Yeah, sure.
a different perspective on inclusion. So number one, in addition to women, we work big time on PWD inclusion, which includes hearing and speech impaired and of course physical disability as well. So around 1400 plus PWDs who work with us. We have also trained many of our senior leaders on sign language. That's a way of ensuring that even they are able to understand what is the reality for a PWD person, and they are also sponsoring it from their end. Many of our store managers are again sensitized into sign language as well. So that helps us to ensure that we're able to give a respectable living for PWDs. The second aspect in terms of inclusion is also social inclusion. So we have had situations, for example, where we had women who were formerly Naxalites surrendered, and now the state government is trying to rehabilitate them. So in these cases, they teach them how to make phenyl. Now, while one say no phenyl, that's great, but they also have to sell it. And many of them, coming from their background, simply have never been into a sales role, never know how to speak to people or sell a product. So we sell their products in our Reliance retail stores, and in this manner ensuring that the Naxalites who are now reformed have a sustainable living as well. So both inclusion from a PWD and then from a social perspective as well.
Yes, please. So this is one policy that we have implemented at Shoppers Stop. Yes, it is. It costs, and it's the intention that matters. So we want to do the right thing, just like Nabamita said, whether it is the right thing to do or no. Any new policy, if you want to discuss in monetary terms, it may not probably give you the right numbers, saying that no, productivity has gone down, sales has gone down, etc., etc. But policies like this give advantage in so many different ways. One, you able to get more diversity. One, it creates a great image for your brand. Uh, Secondly, it's the right thing to do, and you have more retention, greater loyalty of employees. These are some things that probably you can't measure every day, and those returns are much more than the opportunities or loss of a person being absent or productivity being down. So it give policies like this returns and gives back in so much different ways that you can't even count.
We also provide sanitary hygiene to our partners, female partners at stores, which we started doing few years back, apart from training them on that. So like he said, it's about doing those little things sometimes that matters.
So these are things that you can't quantify, but like they said, you need to do the right thing, because I'm sure those women employees will only double the productivity when they're actually working on the floor. So I think leaders need to be aware that there are these problems. Once they are aware, then I think those questions on will we lose productivity on those particular days will not arise. So that's my take.
Yes, and I think policies like this also educate and sensitize our managers. It helps them change their outlook, and some things have to be driven from the top. So this is one of those things. If it is consistent, and of course, it it makes a great sense because people get attracted to it. And this is probably one of the talking points that was there in the last meeting, and now it is there in this meeting. Why has it become a talking point? Simply because it makes a lot of sense. Right. I think it is fantastic. We we give maternity leave, but many organizations don't provide paternity leave. But I think it is becoming more and more common across organizations, St- and that is a very welcome move. I think starting from a minimum number of days for paternity leave and then going on increasing. I know many European organizations give 6 months and equal amount of number of paternity leave. They also have adoption leaves. Yeah, so yeah, and it must be so.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you for your suggestion. Yeah.
I want somebody to check that out for me.
Men's diaper changing room, is it?
She's saying the in the men's
In the men's.
washroom.
Yeah, no,
There's
but I have actually seen that in many.
you have
Yes, yes, yes.
really.
It's
Yeah,
in
yeah.
most
In
places it is
most
common,
places now it's gone.
but
Airports, I know.
airports, may yeah, you find it for both. I don't know for women, but I know for men we've seen.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
it's
really interesting to see
yes.
how we are evolving as a
Evolving.
community and
Yes.
how we are changing. I think the whole topic was around redefining our EVP, and yeah.
One is the PR aspect and one is the employer brand aspect. That how that organization now would take care of the entire branding thing. So what would be your comment upon this the entire scenario? How a brand, I mean this organization would take care of this employer branding thing just because of for one scenario.
Which is the scenario?
The scenario is regarding, he's talking about the incident with regards to EY that happened very recently.
Okay, okay, okay.
In terms of the working hours of
So RK was working in EY earlier.
And he
You
left
know, I
EY
had the same
precisely
thought.
because of that.
I had the
I don't
exact
want to
same
speculate.
thought.
I think we leave it to the
We leave it to him.
experts.
Okay, not an expert, but again, a person who's been there. See, I think 2-3 aspects. Number one is again being open to people about what is the expectation. Number one. The second aspect is again to ensure that sensitivity, well-being don't just stay on the board or on the presentations, but actually are being implemented the right way. Okay, in real world. The third aspect here is again to have a partner wherein which can offer one-to-one counseling anytime that is required. And the fourth aspect here is at the end of the day, especially in retail, since the people that we work are especially from a very humble background, to ensure that the HR is strong enough and able enough to flag out these issues, escalate if necessary, and be able to drive certain changes. Because let's put it this way, if a CA is not able to speak in that organization about the concern that she has, from our retail sector, where most people come from very humble backgrounds, the issue would be even more severe. So, can we have a situation wherein, as HRs, we are strong enough, we are able enough to go and escalate, speak about this openly to the management, and bring around some changes? And I'd like to quote one of the HR leaders who would always say that as HRs, we should always have a resignation letter in our pocket. That's the only way we'll actually be able to be brave enough, bold enough to go and speak that, look, this is not accepted, this has to change. Otherwise, the HR and the organization would suffer. Custodians of values, as custodians of culture, it's our duty, if nothing else, to do that.
Can I add something to that? So as HR professionals, I think while he said it's a duty, and we should do that. Typically, as HR functions, we should walk the floor. We should look at those flag offs. I mean, those burnouts, understand where are the burnouts happening, and flag it off at the right time. Because, like he rightly said, a lot of people won't even speak up, right? But when we are walking the floor, when we are talking, and having conversations with our team members, it is very, very important to identify where things are going wrong and flag off it at the right time so that you don't reach to that scenario at least at the least that we can say.
All right, I think we are past our time, and Bhumika is signaling from there that so just to give a brief summary, I think we've covered what is employer branding, and basically 3 parts to it. One is reputation and how do you create reputation. Second is EVP and how do you go about building your EVP. And third is culture. So how do you go about propagating your employer brand and ensuring that your internal culture is reflected outside. Besides that, we also have citizenship, which we saw in Shopper Stop. Also, we use customer care associate in front of our designations, and in Starbucks there is partner is a word that they use, which gives pride in all the employees who work, which means they're a citizen of that particular company, organization, or group of people. So instilling that citizenship is important. This, I think, were the key takeaways. Besides that, we spoke about how to measure EVP and if it can be really done. And Binny had added, do we look at quality of hire? Do we look at number of resumes that come in? Do we look at our surveys and what are the outcomes of surveys? So, and there are various other methods also. And lastly, I think sticking to the topic at hand, do we create personas and do we have different EVPs for different employee groups and to address the generational gap that is there? I think the unanimous information that has been shared is as an organization we need to have a common EVP, but to attract talent from different generations or different segments, you need to address it by having the right call outs and put out what attracts them specific to their job description, specific to their area of work. So that's about, I think, thank you so much, RK, Nabamita, Binny. I think you've added great value, and I got to learn a lot from what you have said. I'm sure all our people here, family and friends who are sitting in the audience, have loved to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Aniruddha.